Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brund. On this episode, we talk about the Alive Deluxe Edition box set that just came out. We'll go through each of the shows, each of the discs, tell you what we like and what we don't like. Lots to cover in this episode. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So let's jump in and let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brund. Today, for like the 9,000th time, I feel like in the last month, my
Hello,
comrade, the man with no background today, Mr. Vincent LaRussa.
baby, don't your hesitate.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Oh, man. How you doing, bloody?
I am doing well. I got my coffee and my biscotti.
Nice.
Now I come prepared with my beverage. Well, it is the morning,
It
so
is the morning. Yes, exactly. And you are getting geared up and ready for the Thanksgiving
even
holiday.
holiday. Oh, look at my glasses. You can see my light.
Ooh, look at that.
Should I stay like this the whole time?
Yeah, you
Hello.
should. Yeah.
I
Uh,
am. I am. I love the holidays.
yeah, you seem a bit thawed.
Well, I'm not at work.
Okay, there you go.
Hello.
Instant thawing, right?
Yeah. I got my family here. Hi,
You
family.
got. Oh man. And to think I thought I was gonna have a lot. I'm gonna have like 20 people over for Thanksgiving. Your family is about 100, 150 people, right? Or 150 items over there, I guess I could say.
Oh, not that many, but well, at least not in this room.
Okay. Oh man. Well, we wanted to get on. I know we did our comments about when the Alive box set was announced. And now that it's officially dropped and we've both had a chance to listen to it, we figured let's get on and talk about specifically the music that's on the set, right? Because that's what we're always most interested in is the tunes, the music. And let me start with this. Obviously, we spoke about the track listing already, and we'll get into that more today. When you started your listening, where did you start? Did you start with the live album, the remastered version, and just go in order? Did you start with one particular concert, the rehearsals? Where did you start your listening pleasures?
I started with volume two.
Volume 2, which is what the
Yeah.
Davenport show?
Yeah.
Okay, so you skipped over the remastered album entirely, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Did you listen to the remastered version of the album at all?
Oh yeah. I
Okay,
just I just didn't go there first. I was
gotcha.
more excited to hear what I hadn't heard yet.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, same thing here. I listened to the remastered album last. I actually went to the rehearsals first because I was like, all right, I gotta hear this jam. I gotta hear Strange Ways. I gotta hear Room Service. That was where my toe was, most extended, I'll say. And
Mm.
we'll talk about if that was the case after listening. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I thought for this conversation, even though you started one spot, I started another, I thought maybe it's best just to start at the top and we'll go in order of the way the release is, right? So the first thing up is the remastered album, what you and I actually listened to, it sounds like last. Did you have any thoughts about this remastered version of this album?
I mean, it sounded good to my ears. I didn't really have any issue with it. Sometimes with the remasters, it's just really a volume boost. You got to
Mm-hmm.
remember, remaster is different from remix.
Right.
Remastering is not taking any of the individual tracks and adjusting those volumes.
Okay.
It's usually, and I mean, remember when the Kiss remasters came out? When did they first start the remasters on the CDs? Was that like late 90s?
Yeah, I felt like it was around the time of the reunion.
Right. And because what had happened was just a little history on these things, just in general, with CDs, when they came into fashion, or early on the CDs, where they did really like a quick and dirty ways of transferring these um these albums to CDs, the leveling and stuff like that. A lot of them were off because it was a new technology. Let's just say
Hmm.
relatively new. It was new, and some of those original CDs, I'm not just talking from Kiss, just in general, just were very um, sterile, as people would describe it, and that's why vinyl. There's always that comparison, vinyl to
Yep.
CD, and now it's people don't talk CDs anymore; they talk streaming. And really, honestly, when it comes to streaming, I know different services offer, master like quality on your streaming, or just regular, like almost MP3 sounding.
Hmm.
And for those who don't know, an MP3 is a compressed, version of that audio, of
Right.
that mastered. So I know this younger, or this generation now, they're so used to hearing streaming, and they're not realizing that when you just do generic streaming from Spotify, from Tidal, from whatever, you're really getting a very much of a compressed
Right.
version. For my service that I use, Tidal, I have the more premium level, and I think it actually costs like $10 more a month,
Okay.
and I get like basically the mastering highest quality. So that's how
Okay.
I listen to my music.
Gotcha. Yep.
So yeah, so the whole thing, when they did it in the late '90s, they started remastering the Kiss albums. A lot of people like, oh, I want to hear what Hotter Than Hell sounds like. I think people were kind of thinking, oh, it's going to sound so much different because they're going to go remaster and retweak and EQ. But really, what remastering is just taking whatever the sources, and kind of boosting levels and EQing the overall mix, and using compression and these type of things.
Right.
And for the most part, that does yield a better sound. And a lot of remasters, and I've heard remasters from different artists that sound really good, and some that I'm like, then they tried. Then there was that whole era of brick walling, and everybody was just trying to be as, and that to me ruined a lot of,
Yep.
and those original CDs were actually better. So sorry for the long-winded thing, but I figure I give a little history into
Yeah.
listening to this to say, you know, this has
Yeah.
already been remastered.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why, to me, listening to this remastered version of this album on the box set here, I was a little disappointed in this. Not because of the sound. I mean, it sounded really good, but I was surprised because I thought it would just be like you just said, like adjusting volumes and things like that. But there were actually changes that were made to a few. I don't know if you picked it up. Like, for example, in Let Me Go Rock and Roll, at the end, when Peter Chris usually loves Kiss loves you, rock and roll, all of a sudden he mentions Quad Cities. I'm like, wait a second. That's not on Kiss Alive. What the hell is that?
Mm,
And before 100,000 years, when Gene starts with the bass,
yeah.
there's an extra bass note in there. Like, where the hell did that come from? There's like a third bass note. At the end of, what is it? At the end of 100,000 years, you hear Peter Criss yell, Paul Stanley. What, like, wait. None of this is on Kiss Alive. Where is this
So
coming from?
so I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is more of what I was saying.
Hmm.
A remaster, that to me is in a remix, because you're putting in an element that's not in the
That wasn't there in the
originals.
originals.
So
Exactly.
you went to the original multi-track in that
Hmm.
sense, because
Yeah.
how could you activate or put that on?
Right.
If you're just getting the master, uh, when you do a remaster, typically, and somebody write in the comments if I'm wrong on this, you're getting the 2-track master, and that's what you're working off of.
Hmm.
So typically, what they did back in the day is they had your multi-track, and I think this is from what I read, is a 16-track, and Eddie Kramer did his final mix to 2-track, and then they would also do like a safety copy.
Right.
Okay, so they would take the 2-track and then make a dupe of that, so that becomes another generation.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so um, I don't know. That's so
Yeah.
the fact that it says 2025 remaster,
Right.
doesn't say remix and remaster, because that could say that also. So
Of
that's
course. Right.
a
Yeah.
little unclear.
Yeah, and I know that they did go to the master tracks on all of this stuff, but for me, the remastered album, to start this, I wanted it to be pure, what we've had for 50 years. I don't mind hearing, I love hearing all those extra things on the actual recordings for Davenport, for Cleveland, for Wildwood, etc. But that alive album, to me, should have stayed pure as is, as we've known for 50 years. Not that these little minor things changes it much, but
Yeah.
the first time I heard it, I was like, whoa, whoa, wait, that's not on Kiss Alive. So it's just, and to me, the sound, the bass in Cold Gin does sound a lot more predominant to me in this mix than what I've heard previously. Maybe it's just me, maybe, but overall, I just right out of the gate, I was a little bit like, all right, I wish they didn't tweak with what was on and what wasn't on this release to begin with. That was just my opinion. I'm curious how other people feel about that, but it was especially when I got that third bass note in 100,000 years. I was like, whoa, wait a second. I know that like the back of my hand. That was the first one that really jumped out at me. I was like, all right, that's interesting. Why would they add an extra bass note here? That's just like so
Mhm.
random. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what my comments are on the remastered album. Anything else you want to say on that before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the set?
Well, I mean, again, this is if people don't know, a lot of live recordings in the 70s were done from the mobile recording, like
Mhm.
it basically looked like a long trailer type of thing.
Yep.
And so that, so think about that for a second. I've seen a picture of it where Eddie Kramer's in there and there's a little like black and white
Mhm.
television,
Yep.
so you're
Yep.
not actually in the arena,
Yep.
you're hearing everything through monitor speakers in a truck. So
Yep.
so I mean, just think about that for a second. You're not fully immersed in
It's
being
true.
in the crowd
Yeah.
and all that. So you're kind of isolated in a trailer,
Hmm.
and whatever the state of the art was back then, they had. And I also read something that I didn't realize that Kiss used some of Peter Frampton's equipment for this.
I remember reading that recently somewhere also. Don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, and I just, again, read it I think yesterday, just doing
Mhm.
a little research on that. So but yeah, it's my point of what I was going to say is, Eddie Kramer obviously goes without saying, it's just such an incredible engineer and
Yes.
producer, and the sounds, the sonics of this, before all these remasters was always great in my opinion.
Yes.
And,
Agreed.
so it really is larger than life. See
I
what I
see
did
what you
there?
did there. I see what you did there, my
Yeah.
friend. So yeah, no,
So
I agree. And look, we did a look back on the Alive album 2 months ago, I guess, in September, when it was the actual 50th anniversary. And we both agreed that this album is borderline flawless,
yeah,
So that's where in my mind, I
and
don't
it
need a remix. I don't need a remaster. The thing is perfect the way it originally
and,
was.
and it makes it even more evident when you hear the other volumes, and you
Yes.
hear the other, from
Yes.
the so which we could
Agreed.
get into.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, with that in mind, I know for decades, Kiss fans have always kind of clamored for all of these raw recordings. And between the Just to Kill box set that came out last month and now the Alive box set, we've been given almost all of these original recordings, which I think is something that we've all anxiously waited for decades. So, from that point of view, this whole release, the two releases, has been very exciting. Clearly, as we're learning through this, and we'll talk about it as we go through these shows, saying that Kiss Alive was recorded in Detroit, eh, not true at all. Okay, it's in fact, I don't even know if a single song from Alive is actually sourced from Detroit. It doesn't seem like it to me. And apparently, Davenport, which is the second performance is on this set, was a huge day for the band, right? They had two shows that day. They had the afternoon show, which was on the Just to Kill box set, the evening show, which is on this box set. They recorded the sound check. Davenport really was, I think, for the band, a huge moment in this recording Kiss Alive, knowing that they were recording two shows that day and the sound check. And it's something that you really never hear the band say, oh, Kiss Alive, Davenport. They always built up that whole Detroit thing, and I get why. But Davenport was really, I think, a big day for the bands. And it's unfortunate to me when you start listening, especially to the second show, the evening show here. Deuce starts off, it sounds great. And then you hear Paul with his Do It in Deuce. And I'm like, could he be any less enthusiastic with his Do It there? And then as the show goes on and Strutter's the next song, I'm like, God, is this the worst version I've ever heard of Strutter maybe in my life live from the band? Clearly, Davenport Paul was not feeling well. We know from the afternoon show that was on the Just to Kill set that his voice sounded a little rough. This one, whew, This was not easy listening for me. But what did you think of the Davenport show?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very evident right away.
Yeah.
And I think Paul did a great job of trying to compensate for, I heard where he did certain things, went into falsetto or certain, to try to make it passable. But
Hmm.
clearly, he wasn't singing, to his full capacity. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting to hear it, in that sense of when Paul wasn't because you're so used to hearing this flawless Paul and
Exactly.
Gene performance, and I gotta say, Gene's performance, vocally throughout all these recordings are really good. It's
Hmm.
really impressive.
Yep.
So the fact that this is the second show, I mean, Paul's putting a lot into this. He's talking to the crowd, he's doing that whole thing. So
Yep.
to do a second and repeat of that, it's a lot.
It is.
So understandably, if he wasn't great on the first, he was certainly not going to be great on the second.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a fun listen. I thought. I didn't. I mean, the band, the thing was the band still sounded great. It still sounded tight. There wasn't anything as far as musical performance that I picked up
Hmm.
on. You hear a bad note here and there and
Right.
whatever, but but other than that, it was, it was still a great performance
Yeah.
musically.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought musically it was good. I wouldn't say great. There was something that seemed, and maybe it was just because of Paul's voice, the whole show just seemed a little sluggish to me, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that I'm going to be running back to listen to Davenport Evening Show on a regular basis the way I did with Detroit on the Just to Kill set. Um, Look, I'll say this: I give them a ton of credit for putting this show out there completely untouched as it is because look, I've got plenty of bootlegs from Kiss from all eras, and especially the Just to Kill tour. I have to have at least 15 shows, 20 shows, whatever the number is. I don't know. And this is far and away the worst sounding show Kiss has ever had that I've
Yeah.
heard. Um, I give them credit for putting this out there and putting it out there untouched, clearly, because it would have been easy for them to say that these reels were lost or something like that, and they couldn't put this out there. But no, they put it out there, and I want to say one other thing. When we did our first conversation about this with the track list for the record, I made comments about Rock and Roll All Night not being in the set, not being on this release. And I honestly think now that they did not do Rock and Roll All Night in the evening show. I think they did in the afternoon show Rock and Roll All Night and not Let Me Go Rock and Roll. And in the evening they did the other way around. So a few thoughts I have on that. A, you're recording for a live album. Why the hell aren't you including Rock and Roll All Night in every single one of your sets? B, Paul's clearly not doing well. Why aren't you cutting out a Paul song and maybe do both Let Me Go Rock and Roll All Night? And C, did I ever friggin' think that there'd ever be a time that I'd be talking about Kiss not doing rock and roll all night in a set and almost borderline complain about it? It's just so bizarre. It's a weird choice to me to be recording the live album, knowing that that's the song you're kind of going after to be your quote unquote hit song, and it's not in the set list. It's just such an odd choice to me.
I think as far as the recording part, remember, I think Eddie and the band knew that all the vocals were pretty much going to be re-recorded. I don't think there
Hmm.
was any mystery to that because them jumping around and doing stuff, you're just going to be off the mic. So I think they might have said, well, listen, we're going to record it. We might get a great musical performance to do an
Yeah.
overdub, So I think, that might have been still the reason to do that.
No, that's certainly a fair point. And based off what you just said, I know a few times I thought, gee, did they ever consider pulling the plug on recording the Davenport shows and maybe record a different night instead? But to your point, maybe they thought, no, we've got the gear all here, we got it all set up. We're after the music tracks and we'll re-record the vocals in the studio. So who cares if Paul's under the weather? It's to me fascinating. Look, this is what we wanted for decades is to kind of hear what these raw recordings sounded like. For me, the Davenport show was just slight disappointment that because of Paul's, and there's nothing he can do about it. He was sick. There's nothing we know what he was capable of, especially in '75. But there's a small tinge of disappointment for me with the Davenport show.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, all right. Next up, then, is I think a show that a lot of the fans were really excited for, and that's Wildwood. I want to let you go first and talk a little bit about your listening experience for Wildwood.
Yeah, it's so funny because there's so much Kiss on here and so many versions of the same song. It all starts to become like, okay, which one was that? Other
Uh-huh.
than the Davenport, where you got the Paul obvious.
Yep.
And then, in listening to him, and I don't know I don't know the forensics like you do of which one is from alive and what. So I was listening to that without like investigating and going
Yep.
into all that, you know, and even like, was in Davenport? I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Wildwood, like the intro to Kiss, like how he did it was very
Yes.
different than you. I was like,
Uh-huh.
wow, that's an
Yeah, you guys
interesting
have
way.
waited a long time or something like that.
Yeah, which was kind of cool. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
I'm waiting. You wanted the best, and you got it. You know.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, again, the Wildwood, obviously, clearly, Paul's, back at his game is there. So it's July 23 of 75, and so it's 3 days later
Wildwood's 3 days
from
later.
Davenport.
Uh-huh.
So Paul's had about a 3 day rest, if you want to
Hmm.
even say that, But and clearly he's in much better, top form. But it was interesting, Cold Gin, the second to last song. I thought of you, of course. I'm like, their encore, I assume, right? Because they
Yeah.
closed with Black Dye,
Yeah.
was Cold Gin and Let Me Go Rock and Roll. So now be clear on this. There's no rock and roll all night here.
Mhm.
So again, let's recap of why
Yeah.
rock and roll night's not there.
Yeah. So I think it's wasn't performed this night. So there is actually an audio bootleg from the audience of this show. And I went back and listened to that, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. But Rock and Roll All Night is also not on the audience bootleg. So either coincidentally it's left off of the box set and left off of the bootleg, or it wasn't performed that night. I'm gonna go with it probably wasn't performed that night.
So the second Davenport show, it's not there.
Yeah. And Wildwood, it's not there.
And I remember you saying on maybe one of the other podcasts that you were, or maybe it was privately, like you were disappointed, like because you knew the bootleg and like why is it not there?
Yeah, no, I
So
went back and listened to the bootleg. It's not on the bootleg either.
yeah, that's crazy if you think
Yeah,
about that song, right?
it's bizarre. It's
Yeah,
very, very bizarre. But
yeah.
but I'll say this. I went back and listened to that bootleg, which is a rough listen, a very rough listen. It's a poor, poor, poor. It's one of the worst sounding bootlegs of that time period, unfortunately. But I did that for a reason. I hate to say this right now. I'm not convinced that this Wildwood recording is legit.
So what do you think it
Vocally,
is?
vocally. Like you
Okay,
just said, it's 3 days after Paul was sick, and he sounds perfect on here.
agree.
And in some cases, these vocals just sound so exact to the live album that I'm questioning if they did the studio overdubs on this Wildwood recording. And I went back and I listened, and I'm gonna ask the experts out there, like the Julian Gills of the world or whatever. They're gonna do far better at this than me. But I went back and listened to that audio bootleg, and something like Deuce, again, poor sounding, but I don't hear Paul yell the "do it" on the audio on the audience bootleg, but I hear it on this twice.
Hmm.
A little bizarre. Something like Strutter, the line where Paul sings, "You take her home," and she says, "Maybe, come on, baby."
Yeah.
On the audio bootleg, just the inflection of his voice and all sounds a bit different than what's on this recording. And this recording sounds identical to Kiss Alive. I have no proof of this. I suspect that Wildwood recording at least includes some, maybe even a lot, of the overdubbed vocals and not the actual vocals from that evening.
Interesting.
I could be wrong. I want in my heart to be wrong. I want people to prove to me that I'm wrong. Gut just tells me that I'm not wrong, that this is not 100% pure Wildwood show. Now, I wonder if they recorded the show in 75 and there's only so many tracks to play with, and they re-recorded some of the vocals over the original tracks. I'm making stuff up right now. I don't even know if that makes sense
Very
that they would do
possible.
that. But clearly they put the Davenport show out there with Paul's sick voice on it. They wouldn't put Wildwood out there with overdubbed vocals to trick us. It could be that that's all they have, or it just could be that I'm wrong. And I will
Mm.
admit that that could be the case. I'm not buying that this is 100% what people heard that night in Wildwood. I'm just not buying it.
I'm wondering. I mean, I don't have the physical product.
Yeah.
In the Dress to Kill, they actually show like the boxes that the multi tracks were in.
Yep.
A lot of times you see on there where it tells you, in the notes,
Yep.
what's on each track.
Yeah, I've seen
You know,
nobody online comment that it says anything in the box itself. So
hmm,
I've seen a few people comment on what I'm just saying. Are these vocals really the vocals that were there that evening? Um, Again, I have zero proof of this, and I want to be wrong. I want nothing more than to come on our next episode and be proven that I was wrong and that these really are the. And look, I'll be honest, there are plenty of times when I A-B'd the bootleg audience recording to this that it did sound like it matched up very, very close to being exact. Again, the bootleg is such bad quality, at least the copy I have, that it's hard to say definitively. It just that the sound of that vocal just, I don't know. That was just me. Just me.
yeah,
Saying
yeah,
that, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to the Wildwood show, but and it seems to me an overwhelming majority of Kiss Alive is sourced from Wildwood. I mean, the whole first side of Kiss Alive, from Deuce to Strutter, Got to Choose, Hot in Hell, and Firehouse all sounds like they came from Wildwood, so there's a
yeah,
huge component of this show on Kiss Alive. Even I'm looking at it now, I think Parasite and She came from Wildwood. Perhaps even Cold Gin came from Wildwood. So there's a lot, and that could be why it sounds so exact. Somebody who's done a better AB maybe than I did, tell me I'm wrong. I want to be
yeah,
wrong,
yeah,
but I enjoyed this one, but that's for me 2 out of the 2 live shows where I just had a little bit of disappointment. The first one because no fault of Paul, he wasn't feeling well. The second one because I just questioned the validity of what I was listening to.
yeah.
So talk about taking some steam out. That's why I let you go first because you were like, "Oh, this sounded good," but you were throwing it. I just popped that balloon and took all the air
Yeah.
out of it for
Yeah.
you.
Well,
I
as
could
you
see
said,
you like, "Oh, damn."
as I would expect,
Mhm.
you have the forensics and the tools to hear these other things. I don't have that, or
Mhm.
go through the lengths,
Right.
because you've been listening to boot. I've never been bootleg, man. I can't
No.
listen to something that doesn't
No.
sound good.
Mhm.
One note, I'm like, damn.
Oh, and you can never listen to this Wildwood bootleg that I have.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
it's but sometimes like, what song are they playing? I can barely hear it. So it's
Was
a
this
rough one.
was this bootleg done by Rerun?
It might have been, and it
Yeah,
might have been while it was in his pants and everything, because
yeah.
that's what it sounds
Because
like.
this would have been before the Doobie Brothers
Yes, it would have
concert,
been
right?
before the Doobie Brothers. Yes,
Hopefully, some people know this reference if they're from
I'm
our
sure. I'm
generation.
sure they do.
Okay,
100%. Yes.
all right, good.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts or comments now that I've kind of let the air out of your Wildwood listening pleasures?
No, no, no. I mean, again, we said this, I think, on one of the other podcasts. We never thought that we would hear this stuff,
Right.
and let's not be greedy, let's not be,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I understand from a purist standpoint, you want to hear, because we were always curious because, listen, when we were younger, we didn't know these things were overdubbed or whatever. We thought
Right.
this was the performance. Then I think maybe in our later teen years, we kind of found out, that this stuff was not,
Yep.
100% live,
Right. Yeah.
so
And I'll say this: if these are not overdubbed vocals, which I guess is possible, right? Because I mean, let's be honest, they didn't overdub the Detroit 75 show that's on Just Kill. They didn't overdub either of the 2 Davenport shows that they clearly could have. I don't think Cleveland has any overdubs on it. So the only one I'm questioning the validity on is Wildwood. If it's not overdubbed, then all of this conversation for years about a live being completely re-recorded in the studio is a bunch of hogwash. I don't know what else to say,
yeah,
because
yeah,
this Wildwood recording especially sounds so similar to a live musically. I mean, you can hear a few little mistakes here and there. Vocally, it really makes me question why for 50 years they've been going around with these stories about how much they had to re-record this album in the studio. That's the other thing that makes me think perhaps all these vocals on the Wildwood show have been re-recorded, because it just, yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious. But anyway, I'm not going to beat that dead horse. That was my thoughts on the Wildwood show.
I still enjoyed it,
Yes, and I'll
and
listen
I'm
to it again. I'll listen to it again. I enjoyed it. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Let's get to the rehearsals, which was in the afternoon in Davenport.
Mm.
I think I know you said you started with the Davenport show and you kind of went, from disc two down. But I know when we saw the track list, some of these track lists, obviously, and I think a lot of Kiss fans it kind of jumped off the page. It starts with a jam, you got room service, you got strange ways, a lot of little nuggets over here to kind of get you excited. So you start you listening the jam. Go ahead, tell me what you thought about the jam session.
I mean, I was confused listening to this. It was, first of all, I thought it was great. It's one of the best things on this, and I'll tell you why. Um, it's a blues jam, but there's two guitars clearly, panned.
Yep.
I'm like, who's the other guitar player? That's Paul Stanley doing those solos?
I thought Ace
Because
did all the solos and Paul was just doing the rhythm.
again, we would have to do some forensics on this
Hmm.
because it sounds like, two different sounding guitars. And I'm
Hmm.
like thinking, Paul plays this well,
Right.
you know?
Right, right.
Um, and what's interesting about it is the soloing that you do here. And again, I've listened to, Cream and some of that tradition, blues rock from that,
Hmm.
or that they like. It doesn't sound like Ace really solos from like Kiss,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I was like, it gave me more of a respect for if that is all Ace
And
of
which I
just
think it
playing.
is. Hmm.
Yeah, because I was like, wow. I was like, this is really good. Like I was hearing things that I did not.
Hmm.
I thought I was gonna hear all Ace's bag of tricks.
Right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like, and it was, but I could swear, and I only did one listen, so I'll be honest and upfront. I could swear there were two different guitar players trading off. It sounds like two different sounding guitars,
Okay.
and I was listening to this on my laptop,
Hmm.
and I heard the stereo pan, kind of like
Right.
one solo be here.
Yep.
So, and I actually, who were the guitars on Kiss Jam Alive? Like, because I was at
Mhm.
that point curious. Then I looked at the credits, and of course, there's nothing.
Right.
So maybe you're right. Maybe it is all Ace. But if Paul is playing any of that, I am like absolutely stunned. Because I mean, we know Paul did Literally I Stole Your Love, A World
Right.
Without Heroes, Sure Know Something.
Yep.
So he's done, but nothing to the sense that I ever, heard
Yep.
anything like that. So I'm hope you're wrong and I'm right in the sense that that is Paul,
Hmm.
because now right after this podcast I'm going to listen to it again,
Hmm.
and say, did I not just hear two different sounding? Because it doesn't make sense, that if Ace is playing through one amp and it's mic'd, and then all of a
Right.
sudden it changes sound. I could swear, unless I was, overdosing on cookies and my
Which is
mind was
always
a little,
possible.
you know,
Which is always
um,
possible. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but again, my ear is not trained that way, the way yours is
yeah,
to hear like two different tones like that. I just thought it was cool when it starts and you hear somebody say, quiet on the set, and
yeah,
clearly they're
yeah,
going to start recording. Obviously, this jam was just them kind of getting loose and getting ready to record. It wasn't anything that was ever intended to be on Kiss Alive. I
yeah,
think it's cool for what it is, just like a little snapshot into the band's soundcheck, if you will, rehearsal during 1975. I
yeah.
wasn't totally excited over it. I know you just called it like one of the highlights on the box. I don't know how often
I'm
I
at,
would listen to this.
it's, it's interesting. I'm actually having it in my ears right now.
Okay.
I'm just listen for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me hear it from. There's one guitar here, and then I go a little bit. Then it switches here.
Lead or rhythm?
Lead switch.
Hmm.
All right, let me hear. Let me see. Let me go one more part. I'm telling you, at about 1 minute in, it goes to this. I think it's Paul.
Interesting.
It's two different sounds. It's here, and it's a little bit more like rudimentary. Let me just say,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and then you're like it's on a diddly 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 diddly
Mm-hmm.
diddly, and it's in this speaker. I think it's both of them doing soloing,
Well,
which makes this even cooler because I've never heard Paul play like that. So
right.
you might have to do a reverse though on this. Go back
I might have to go
and
back and listen. And I did
this,
listen with headphones, but I didn't pick up on that.
yeah, I'm telling you,
Okay.
that buy a new pair of headphones.
Well, actually, I just got new headphones today.
There you go.
So,
Use those.
and oddly enough, I got new headphones because the left ear was slightly muffled.
Yeah,
So that's why I got new
there you
headphones.
go.
So I now have to go back and do a little new listening.
Yeah,
Interesting. Interesting. But I think for me, just as a recording, and that'll be interesting if it's both Paul and Ace soloing, but it's not something I think I'm going to like put into rotation and be listening to on a regular basis. It's cool to have. I'm glad it's
yeah.
included. It's a nice little snapshot. If Paul is doing some of the soloing, that makes it even cooler to me. But it's not something I'm going to be like, gee, I haven't heard the Kiss Jam in a while. Let me put that. I just don't think it's going to be something I revisit. Saying that, I'm so glad it's on the box. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely go back and listen to that now with my new headphones. And not
Yeah.
not these. These are not the one. These are my recording headphones. I'm talking the headphones I listen to when I'm playing music. So,
So what did you get, if may I ask? Because you know me, I'm like a little audio.
oh, I got AirPods. I just got a new pair of AirPod 4s.
You could come in and boo him now.
Okay.
No, seriously, just crowd around the table. Can you get a quality pair of headphones?
Well, this is what I use when I'm running. I
Michael
don't I don't
Run. Here we
I don't
go.
want big headphones when you see like these big earmuffs coming along.
I understand that part of
I
it.
want nice wireless
You're
headphones.
you're a grown ass man. Get yourself a pair of grown ass headphones for your audio listening pleasure.
Okay. Maybe I will consider that for my listening pleasures, not my running pleasures.
Christmas is right around the corner. Put it on your list.
Maybe I'll consider that.
Have you been naughty or nice this year? What is Santa going to bring you?
That's a good question. Depends on who you ask in the family.
Yeah. Put a couple extra
Uh,
cookies under the tree.
there you go. Oh man. All right. Well, you picked up on it listening to it on a laptop, so I should be able to pick it up on my.
Let me just make it very clear. This is going to be a public service announcement right now for
Go
those that are
ahead.
out there, because you know me, I'm old school.
Yes.
If you don't have a good pair of headphones, you're doing yourself a disservice of listening to music. Not a lot of people can have an audiophile
Says the
stereo
man who was
system.
listening on his laptop. Go ahead.
Fair point. Fair point. However, even listening on my laptop, I was able to identify that there were two different
Yes.
guitars.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
that is fair. That is fair. Yes.
Aha!
And in fairness to you, and I don't want you to, but if you scroll to your right, you'd have all the stereo equipment right over there, and you go up your stairs, you have all the stereo equipment there. So I will be fair.
Circa 1978, all that silver
That's right.
goodness.
All the silver goodness. That is right. Yes.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to get up and because I can.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, where is the podcast going now? What is Vincent doing? He's grabbing something from the shelf. Oh, two things from the shelf.
It's not the album, but come on, man.
Oh, look at that.
8 tracks.
8 tracks. All right. Hopefully in 2027, if there's a deluxe edition Alive 2, then you can break those out.
And hopefully they'll remaster it on 8 track. Not.
That's really what we need, a remastered 8-track version.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, back to the rehearsals with Davenport then. So it starts with the jam. We spoke about that. Next up, room service. Now, I had said beforehand when we saw the track list that I was told years ago that the version of room service on You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best was a rehearsal that was recorded for Kiss Alive with no vocal, and that's why there was a new Paul vocal on the You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best album. So for me, this was zero surprise when all of a sudden this was an instrumental version and not any vocal on it. Were you disappointed that there was no vocal on this?
Well, I think in the sense of what you're saying about, that version from You Wanted the Best, we
Mm-hmm.
were kind of anxious to hear, okay, what did they take out?
Yep.
So yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Now, before this starts, you could hear somebody say, oh, we're not going to sing, we're just taping the music. So clearly, this was to the point you were making earlier that they were going to re-record the vocals anyway. The purpose of this was to really get the music. What's surprising to me, again, being bootleg boy that I am, or bootleg brun, as you like to call me, it sounds to me that they were performing this at a slower pace than they normally
Mm.
did the few times they performed this live. And I wondered why that's the case. Who knows?
Well, that's true. There's also where she on certain versions sounds slower than Kiss
Yes.
Alive. So there's certain
Hmm.
things that clearly they were, for whatever reason, doing at different tempos.
Yeah. 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 I don't know if it was just an attempt in this case to get the music picture perfect for a song they weren't playing on a regular basis, but to me it's cool, but again, it's not something I'm going to be anxiously listening to day after
And
day.
and speaking of a bassist, you said bassist, but I'm going to say bassist.
Okay.
Just want to go back to Kiss Jam. There's some
Yes.
Geneisms in there that he does that kind of
Hmm.
took me by surprise on the bass.
Hmm.
Again, I hate when Gene goes, "Oh, I don't really know what I'm doing on the
Oh, it
bass."
drives me nuts when he does that.
All right, enough already. I mean,
Yeah.
again, listen to this album, listen to the bass playing. You know,
Yep. Look, I agree. I agree. If ever I get Gene on the show, that's
yeah,
going to be then something that I have to ask him about is why does he always put down himself as a bass player? He'll
yeah,
like hold up somebody, rightly so, Paul McCartney as like a great bassist. And so he'll always talk about other musicians that are great, but when it comes to himself, he'll always put himself down. And I don't understand why. And then
right,
a lot of people in the media buy into that. Oh, Gene's a below average bass player. No, he's not. He's actually a damn good bass player, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
But yeah, room service again, no vocal. Cool. Glad I have it. Not something I'm going to be so excited to go back and listen to
yeah.
every day type of thing. All right. Anything else you want to say about room service?
No,
All right. Then I'm going to go to Strange Ways. And yes, I'm going track by track right now because I think these tracks so warrant talking about individually because they're so unique. Strange Ways, Gene vocal, which I think surprised a lot of people when they first heard it.
yeah,
Um, what's fascinating to me is there was a bootleg that or recording that came out like 10 years ago of Gene singing Baby Driver. And I just wonder, was Gene tasked at times to lay down a vocal track, like a guide track for Peter, so that this way, when Peter did the studio vocals, he'd have a guide track to follow in his ears? I don't know. I'm totally making stuff up. I just think it's so odd that this is now the second time there's a Peter song with a Gene vocal on it. Could just be coincidence, but it's just one of those things. But
yeah.
what do you think of this recording of Strange Ways?
I mean, clearly to me, it's fun to listen to because you've never heard this, but you know, it doesn't have Peter Chris's vibe, vocally. I mean, Peter
Hmm.
Chris honestly does a better vocal of this song, but it's fun to listen to,
Hmm.
and then it makes you think like, is there more of this that exists again? To what we always say,
Yes, yeah,
you know.
and I'll mention that in a little bit. But what I found interesting is, look, we know Gene is notorious for getting vocals to songs wrong, right? I mean, think about even in 75 when he's singing, what is he singing? Let Me Go Rock and Roll, and he's doing the vocal for Rock and Roll All Night, or is the other way around? And in the 80s, Paul's mic goes out during Detroit Rock City, and Gene starts singing all the wrong words to Detroit Rock City 10 years later. But here it is in 1975. Gene knew basically almost all the vocals to a song they had, let's be honest, pretty much ignored for a year.
Yeah.
Seems a little surprising to me that he'd just be able to, off the top of his head, sing all the vocals to a song he did not write, to a song they would never perform in live, really, for all intents and purposes, and they probably hadn't thought about for a year. And all of a sudden, Gene gets up to the mic and he knows all of the
Well,
lyrics.
I think I told you
Yeah.
this um, before it actually officially came out because I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't think that's Peter Chris on the drums.
Yeah, no, yeah. The first
And
day that got came out, you texted me that instantly, and I was going to ask you about that. So you don't think it's Peter playing drums still?
and because of that, I think that's why he's not doing the vocal. Because I mean, think about it. If he's not playing the drums, somebody
So,
else is.
so why, as a drummer who's in tune with that type of stuff, why do you say that you think it's possible that that's not Peter Chris on drums?
Because if I could visually show, he's playing the verse.
Uh-huh.
That Peter, it's just flat.
Yep.
There's none of that. There's none of that Peter Chris swagger in the song.
Hmm.
It's very vanilla, very plain. I'm thinking, all right, did he not want to put any extra energy to do those things? It doesn't make
Hmm.
any sense. It doesn't sound like Peter Criss. And again, I could be wrong,
Yep.
but I mean, if you think logically now, all right, if he's not playing the drums, he's not on the mic.
Right.
Gene was maybe, and we do know that a lot of times, drum techs or whatever would do a sound check or
Yep.
guitar, for years. So if the drum tech sat in for that, play the drums, Gene was probably like, all right, somebody's got to sing it. I'll do the vocal.
Mhm. My only thing, because you had texted me that like within like 10 minutes of this dropping, right? You listen
Yeah.
to this and you're like, I don't think that's Peter Criss on Strange Ways. And I
Yeah.
was like, wait, what? Kiss has pulled a lot of shenanigans over the years. So what I'm
Mm-hmm.
about to say doesn't necessarily add up, but do I think that recording a sound check for Kiss Alive, where Peter's clearly there and recording the other songs, that they would have even considered putting a song on Kiss Alive where Peter wasn't the one playing drums on it? Like I said, they pulled a lot of shenanigans over the years, but I
Yeah,
just
but
don't
this,
think they would have purposely recorded something where Peter's there and then said, oh, but Peter's not in the room right now. Get another drummer. We'll do that.
well, don't you think it's strange way that it's not on any of the other volumes?
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I'm saying is that the other shows, the actual
Mhm.
shows, they didn't perform it, right?
No, they supposedly they performed it for like 2 shows in Canada on the Hot in the Hell tour.
Okay,
That's it.
right. Okay, so that clearly this is not going to be in the set.
Right. Yep.
So they just said, "Oh, let's jam Strange Ways. Let's just play something." I don't understand why it's there. Then what is it there for?
So, but the reason I don't think it's a jam is because I think it's Paul at the end. You can hear him say, I want to do that again.
Yeah,
So
I remember
something
that. Yeah,
clearly that they're recording with consideration for Kiss Alive. Look, when you texted that to me, I went back and listened to it like 3, 4 times in a row to listen to and listen specifically to the drum. And I'm like, all right, I hear what Vin's saying. And I can't discount what you're saying at all because you're right. I mean, it's the type of drum beat that's being played there that borderline I could play, right? And
yeah,
it doesn't have any of that Peter Criss swagger that you're talking about, but it just doesn't add up that they would be recording during the day when Peter's there the whole day, unless he had to go freaking take a dump or something. And they're like, well, we can't lose this time. Let's get somebody in there
yeah. I
playing these
mean,
drums. But
it just doesn't make sense to me if this is a song considered to be a part of something that
yeah,
Peter Chris is going to play a lazy flat beat, but he
yeah,
doesn't do that on anything. It
yeah,
just
yeah. No,
so
you're 100% right. The drumming on this song sounds so much
you know,
different than the other songs on
I
this.
mean, if you really think about every song that's on Alive, let's
Yep,
forget about all these
yep,
original Alive. There's nothing other than tempos that deviates from Peter Chris's playing where he plays something different.
hmm
It's basically got his feel from the original record. Yeah, we know like the original version of Firehouse is slow, and this is
yeah, yeah,
obviously more, but those are just bringing the tempos up,
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll
but
even go another step further. To me, listening to all these live recordings and the original version of the album and all that, Peter's the MVP of all these. I mean, he's playing
yeah,
is on freaking fire. I mean,
there's
he's
one
playing
song,
great.
I forget, I think it's on the Davenport where you clearly hear him drop a drumstick.
Okay.
He
I
drops the
didn't.
drumstick.
Hmm.
You hear you hear like the hi hat go out or the ride go
Uh-huh.
out. And I
Uh-huh.
know as a drummer what that sounds like,
Right.
and he picks up. It's about a second gap, which is kind of
Okay.
cool. You
Right, right.
hear
Right.
that.
Yep, yep, yep.
But again, whether it's 100,000 years, I'll do the old Mike Brun, songs on my chest,
Uh-huh.
now
Uh-huh. Yep. Yep.
if take the Strange Ways, that's like him playing
Uh-huh. Yep.
like why would he do that?
Yeah.
And then on Strange Ways, just play this, and it's such a like Peter Chrisism,
Yeah.
because the song is so stand dan
Well,
dan
you
dan,
said this to me within, like I said, within 10 seconds of listening to this.
yeah,
You
yeah,
texted me this instantly, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about on this recording right now. I also picked up that during the solo part of Strange Ways, in the middle, he goes from, I think, playing like the ride cymbal to playing the hi-hats then again, and just like that
mm-hmm.
basic thing. And it just sounded a little odd. Now, again, obviously, it's a song that they weren't playing on a regular basis. And also, if it is Peter, he could have just switched back to the hi-hat. But I can't disagree with you that it's a potential that it's not Peter, but maybe it's just my heart wanting it to be Peter. But
Yeah, yeah,
it's an interesting thing to think about. Now I'll say this: I thought the Gene vocal on this was really cool. I liked it. I'm not saying it was better than the Peter Criss version,
Yeah.
but to me, it's cool to have Gene singing Strange Ways also. Yes, it would be great to have
Okay.
Peter doing it also, but good. What do you
So
have?
here, so I just Kiss FAQ, which is a great site. I'm just
Yes.
going to a forum.
Mhm.
So I'm just reading one person here says. So now we heard the Strange Ways rehearsal take, but and I have to ask these questions. Why isn't Peter singing lead? Why did the drums sound weird, not like Peter?
Mhm.
I saw a theory in the other thread that maybe Peter left for a cigarette break and his drum tech filled in or something. But this is just too convenient of an excuse. So, anyways, again,
Well, I liked my
you know,
idea that he
yeah.
went to take a dump instead.
What do you want to do? To go up the bathroom, PU. Yeah. So, I'm just seeing if there's anybody else, but I don't know if we're gonna get a confirmation by people's
No,
opinions in the
no, of
forum.
course not. No, of
But
course not. No, no.
yeah,
And look, the last thing I'll say about this recording also, Exchange Ways, I love at the end when Gene starts going off on somebody, you can
yeah,
hear,
yeah,
we're doing some taping, you got to be quiet. He's like yelling at somebody. And then he starts like, if the show's going to be late, that's how it has to be. It's just, it shows to me just how important this day was to them. And then even in the afternoon where
yeah,
they're doing these soundcheck recordings, I'm kind of glad they left that little nugget in there because it's like a great little insight to what it was like and maybe some of the pressure the band was feeling that afternoon to get these recordings so perfect,
yeah, yeah.
So, all right, you want to move on to Rock Bottom?
Sure,
Because I
sure.
got more to say about that.
Okay.
So,
So why don't you say? Why
all
don't you
right,
say?
I will. Rock Bottom. So, remember we started off talking about Davenport, and when I said the afternoon show, Paul's voice is a little rough. The evening show, Paul's voice is very rough. He's clearly not doing well. He's sick. Here's the sound check, the rehearsal recorded in the middle of the afternoon, and Rock Bottom. He sounds perfect.
Yeah,
No friggin' way. No way. I'm
yeah.
sorry. No way.
You're right. You're right.
No,
So
that vocal has to be a studio vocal done after the fact.
I agree with you because that's the first thing I picked. I'm like, wait, this sounds exactly like his tone and everything on the
Yeah.
live. You
Yep.
know,
Yep. Yep. It's
is that possible? That was recorded also instrumental, and then they did the vocal afterwards.
oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking exactly what it was, is that they recorded the instrumental version in the afternoon and then recorded the vocal a few weeks later in a studio, whatever. And again, maybe they don't even remember that it was done that way. I don't believe that that's the original vocal from Davenport in the afternoon during
Yeah,
rehearsal. It just,
yeah,
Paul sounds too perfect again in the middle of a day
yeah,
where he's sick as anything. So,
yeah,
and again, I hate saying that because now, it starts just making me question some of this. So what I loved about the Just to Kill thing is that those live recordings were 100% pure. Davenport, the first show on this box set, 100% pure. But now I get to Wildwood, I get to rehearsals, and I'm questioning some of it. It just leaves a little bit of a bad taste. As cool as it is to hear these versions, I'm a purist. I want it to be pure. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
me. That's me. It's a great version, by the way. I think it's an absolute great version of Rock Bottom, and I'm sure one of these rehearsal versions from the afternoon is what ended up on Kiss Alive. I just I want it to be pure what happened in that afternoon.
yeah, yeah,
So. And then last on the rehearsal thing is Watching You, um, which I think is cool at the end. Both Paul and Gene is singing like everybody else is here, and one of them says watching you, the other one says watching us. So clearly,
yeah, 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 yeah,
this clearly to me sounds like they left at least some level of the real vocals on that day.
yeah,
But I think it's a good version. It sounds again very similar to what's on Alive. I don't think it's the Alive version. I
yeah,
think there's slight differences, but clearly Watching You and Rock Bottom were recorded in Davenport during sound checks. I think the biggest takeaway to me with this whole sound check rehearsal recording is that clearly there's more of this. I mean, they talk about wanting to do Strange Ways again. Um, there's obviously other versions of this stuff out there, and I'm like, damn, that's the flavor I want. That's I could have used a 90-minute version of this rehearsal and been totally throwed.
well, wasn't it told that one of the tapes couldn't be found?
For Cleveland, that's why there's only like 5 songs or whatever it is, because 2 of the 3 reels are missing. Now, yeah, to your
Yeah,
point, maybe some of the reels for the rehearsals are missing.
yeah,
However, it sounds to me like there's cuts. If you listen to these like I was in headphones, you could hear like when during the jam where I think it's where somebody's like quiet on the set, you could hear like there's a cut in the tape and then the
Yeah.
jam starts. It's either that or room service. Maybe one of them you could hear that there's a cut before between the talking in the front and then the recording started. It just makes me think that there are more recordings out there. Yeah, look, maybe a reel is missing or
Mm.
something, but man, I would love to have three versions of them rehearsing Strange Ways and three versions of them doing Rock Bottom and three versions of them doing Watching You. That to me would have really made this box set because look, obviously I've been a little bit negative on some of this really around the vocals. I mean, musically it sounds great, but just not buying that I'm listening to 100% legit live vocals always. Um, but having some more of the rehearsals and it would have upped my rating on this box
Yeah.
enormously,
Yeah.
I think, especially with like you're saying, the Cleveland show is incomplete. It's missing two of the three reels, which is unfortunate. Nothing you can do about that. It's even double unfortunate because we do know that songs like Let Me Know were in the set in Cleveland, and it would be nice to have another live version of that. Um, but it makes me want more. And look, I'm being greedy. I realize that. And I've seen people say this, and I did as well. You know, A, the box set, the vinyl version, one side of vinyl is actually blank. So that means they could have put some more stuff on here, right? B, it's actually one less disc on this version compared to the Just to Kill version. So it makes you say, well, they're cheapening out. They could have put more, they could have added more rehearsals. I'll play the other side of that for a moment because I've said all of those things myself. I'll play the other side. The Just Kill box set was 4 hours and 17 minutes long. Your live box set, 4 hours and 27 minutes long. It's 10
Mm.
minutes longer, actually. Now, yes, the original Alive album is at least double, if not triple, the length of Just to Kill. So you're getting more bonus material on the Just to Kill box. But as a package, the Alive box set is actually 10 minutes longer than Just to Kill. So but it makes me wish there was more of this. Whether it's I hope they find the Cleveland reel someday, or that there's more of this rehearsal stuff that comes out.
Mm.
And the shame to me with Cleveland is, damn, what we have of that show sounds so damn good.
Yeah.
They
It's
sound
true.
like they were on fire that night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would be a freaking premium show to have in all of its glory.
Yeah.
And I hope one day they find that because that probably would have been the highlight of this box to me if that whole Cleveland show was on here. So I think we spoke a lot about the rehearsals, the shows that are on here. What's your overall feeling of this box set now, having gone through it?
I mean, I know I think you have more of an appetite for more because again, you know a lot of the ins and outs than I
Uh-huh.
do. So I understand that. But again, as a Kiss fan, thinking about this stuff years ago, we'd never really ever. I don't know if we even talked about it.
Yep.
I mean, in the '80s, we didn't say, "Oh, I wonder."
Ah,
We just didn't know. We didn't have the kind of knowledge.
yep. Exactly.
Um, we like I said, we I thought as a kid everything was recorded at Cobo Hall. That was it. It
I
was
think a
one
lot of
show.
Kiss fans
You
did.
know,
Yep. Mhm.
so I mean, we're in gravy territory. Is my point. We're
Yes.
we're getting stuff. I think they're not being stingy. I think they're being more than of giving us Kiss fans what we want,
Yep.
what's available. Whether they are turning on a track or not, we don't have official evidence on that.
No.
We don't know.
And you just hit a
To your
key thing.
point,
They've given us what's available. It's possible, like I said before, that the Wildwood, if it is the overdub vocals, that might be all
yeah,
that's available. It
right,
might be.
exactly,
We don't
yeah.
know.
They might have just said like, all right, these vocals are shit. We
Mhm.
need we need that track. We need these other two tracks. We're not going to use
Yeah.
this anyway.
Yeah.
Let's just record over it.
Yeah.
This is not.
Like you said,
This
Wildwood
wasn't.
was 3 days after Davenport. Perhaps Paul got even worse.
Yeah, you don't know.
On the bootleg I have, it does not sound that way. But again, the
Yeah,
sound is so freaking bad, you can't tell for
yeah,
sure. But it doesn't sound like that.
right,
Or maybe I'm wrong. I'll say it
yeah,
again and again and again. Maybe I'm wrong. But
yeah,
yeah, look, I'll say this for me. I thought the Jessica box set was an A. I think they really nailed that. They got that so good. That Detroit 75 show was just phenomenal. It's going to be hard for me to ever beat that type of release. If the Dress Kill box set was an A, this was like a B minus C plus to me. There was nothing besides a couple of the rehearsal things that got me like thoroughly throwed, as we like to
yeah,
say. Yeah, there was some disappointments that I had listening to this. especially after the Just Kill box was just so damn good. Um, yeah, just my honest
Yeah.
opinion on this.
Yeah. I think a C, whatever you said, or whatever
Yeah.
C, I think is a little harsh.
Okay.
But
I said B
we come,
minus C plus. Yeah.
yeah, I think, but we come from different perspectives,
Right.
so I can understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I think to your point, rewind even a year ago, you tell me we're getting all this stuff. It's 10 toes ripped through my shoe.
Yeah, of
It's
course, of course.
and the reality
The,
is we did basically get everything that we thought we would.
and you again remember you're hearing things that you've never heard before,
Yes.
and it's pristine quality, not a bootleg, not a this or
Yes.
that.
You
So
know, in
that's why we
fairness,
say
I'll stick with a B. B,
all
B
right. That's what I was
minus.
just gonna
Yeah.
say. That's
B,
why I
B
think your
minus.
C plus is a
Yeah.
little,
No,
you know,
it's just that Wildwood vocal just is nagging at me a little bit
yeah,
if it's not the real vocal from that night. That's what drags me down. But I have to think of the whole package. I'll go B, B minus.
yeah. All right, fair enough. I'll
Yeah.
allow that. The
You'll allow
show
that?
can
Okay.
officially end properly.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to see what other people think. The two box sets that came out back to back, obviously they're related to each other. All these recordings was on the Just to Kill tour. Which box did you like better, Just to Kill or Alive? Did you have any disappointments at all with the Alive box set, like maybe I did? Do you think that those are the actual vocals from the Wildwood show that we're hearing? Do you wish there were more rehearsals? What's your highlight of this? What's your highlighted rehearsals? There's a lot to digest with this. We look
Hmm.
forward to seeing and reading all your thoughts and comments. As always, there are no wrong opinions. Just be respectful. Just be respectful. That's
I
all we
agree.
ask. And the last thing I guess I'll say for everybody especially in America here that celebrates the Thanksgiving holiday,
Holiday.
I'd like to wish everybody and their families a healthy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holiday, enjoy your turkey, enjoy the upcoming festivities for the next month, and we will certainly be back with new episodes. And before we close this show, like we like to do, my brother actually said to me the other day, I get everything that you and Vinny do on the show, but what's double Ringo? And so I explained it to him. He goes, well, it makes sense now. He's like, but I have to tell you something. I don't watch, I listen. So I never knew you guys were doing the two peace signs. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, that's interesting. So for
yeah.
everybody who only listens and doesn't watch, when we say double Ringo, we're giving the two peace signs left and right as we end. So with that, double Ringo to end the show. Happy
Gobble
Thanksgiving,
gobble.
everybody. Gobble, gobble. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Alrighty, there you have it. Our thoughts and our opinions on the newest Kiss Deluxe Edition box set for Kiss Alive. We look forward to reading and seeing all of your thoughts and all of your comments as well. As always, all opinions are welcome and there's no right or wrong answers. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.